This morning's scripture reading is from Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen, as he said. Come see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead, and behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him." "See, I have told you." So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." This is the word of the Lord.
Praise be to God, as we just sang. And great to see all of you. I think it's fair to say that we're going to need a bigger boat. You do these things sometimes and you find out what you find out as you do them, right? We're so thankful that you're here today. Is there any chance that we could maybe crack that back door open a little bit? Because it's hot. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hey, before I get started, I just want to welcome you here today. Introduce myself. My name is Justin Barney. I'm the lead pastor at River Valley Church. It is such a joy and an honor to have you guys in the room today. It's especially exciting for our church community because we have two services currently, and this is just one of the ways that we were able to bring everybody back together under one roof for one day together for Easter. And so we're so excited to be able to have this together. I'll bite a little tight. Thank you for bearing with us. I also want to just say a quick thank you to the teams of people that made today possible. Really, they are my heroes. The people, you know who you are. There are people that were here yesterday from like noon to like 9 o'clock and just helping behind the scenes. There's people that you will not see up here, but they have been a huge help to us. And I just want to thank everybody that's been involved. Over the years, I have had a few close calls with scams. I know it's hard to believe, before Facebook Marketplace existed, there was this thing called Craigslist. Anybody? Craigslist. Hey, if you want to feel old, I just read the other day that Craigslist, the website for Craigslist, is turning 31 years old. Talk about a game changer for us. But you know, and Craigslist was great. If you used it, it was a great way to buy and trade. But you also know that it was littered with scammers. Littered. You get scam emails all the time. They had to put out special notifications and warnings just so that you wouldn't get scammed by the scammers. One time I was in college, and I was trying to sell a drum set on Craigslist. And the scammer went so far as to send me a fake cashier's check in the mail. We played this thing all the way out, friends. I got the check in my hand. I showed it to my wife. And it's just amazing that the lengths that they went to get me to try to cash a fake check so that they could get the money. It seems like there's more scams today than ever before. Just this past week, I got an email of what looked like a very convincing prompt from Netflix to update our payment method, but it turns out it was just a scam. Thankfully, I sent it to my wife. Check this out. It has a Netflix URL at the beginning, and they got real savvy about how they made it look, and it's just incredible. It seems like scams are at an all-time high in our digital age. Then there are those letters that you get in the mail, right? That look incredibly personal. But the moment that you open them up, you realize that it's just another credit card offer. Ugh. And the worst ones, am I right, are the ones that look like a check. You know what I'm talking about. They got the perforated edges, the ones that you took all the time to just, kind of carefully peel back and open, just hoping That it would be a check that you might not have thought about? No, just another credit card offer. What if you received a letter, though, in the mail that came on what looked like official letterhead from a law firm explaining to you that a distant relative that you did not know about had just passed away and left you millions of dollars? How would you react? Well, I mean, at first, and rightfully so, you'd be skeptical, right? Like you'd be skeptical, because how often does that scenario happen, right? But after a while, I bet you that you would probably give them a call. Why? Why would you give them a call? Well, because as skeptical as you are, the offer is just too great. That if it were to be true, it could potentially change everything for you. And the resurrection of Jesus Christ is just like that. Most people, especially New Englanders, they think the resurrection is a scam. Many don't believe that it happened. We have the data to back this up. But the offer of what Jesus gives us is so great that I can't see how you wouldn't want to at least first look into it. When you really look at Jesus, what you find is that the offer is unlike any other offer. How so? Well, because every other offer in this life eventually asks something from you. Your money, your time, your effort, your performance, your religious duty. But the offer of Jesus is altogether different. Jesus does not come saying, do more. He came saying, it is finished. He doesn't say, fix yourself and come to me. He says, come to me and I will make you new. He doesn't offer a better version of your life. He offers you a brand new life. And here's what makes it even more unbelievable, this offer of Jesus. It's not just an offer, but it's actually backed up by evidence. It's backed up by an empty tomb, of which we celebrate today. Now, this may seem obvious to many Christians. After all, it is Easter, right? The event of resurrection is at the center of our faith. It's the pinnacle. Some people call it the Super Bowl of the church. Even the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians, if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile and you are still in your sins. Some of you here today, you're still exploring this idea of Jesus. The fact that you're here today at all says something. For others, you don't believe in Jesus or this event at all. This is just not your deal, not your thing. In fact, if you're being honest today, the only reason that you're even here is to make someone else happy this Easter. Can I just say for a minute that no matter where you land in that spectrum and beyond, we're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you've joined us today. And as I said, the offer is just too great that we would be amiss not to look into it. And there's no better way to look into it than to look at our passage from Matthew chapter 28 this morning. This text, it shows us that the resurrection is both rational and personal. Rational and personal. First, the resurrection is rational. The first part of the passage that we read this morning focuses on two women, the two Marys. It says in verse 1, now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. Now, you might hear that and think to yourself, no big deal. But let me just tell you why it's a big deal. In the world of Matthew, in the world that he was writing in, if you were going to fabricate a big story like the resurrection and just hope to convince people that it was true, you would not have selected women as your star witnesses. Why? Why is this? Well, because in Matthew's time, women were not looked at the way that they are today, co-equals with men before God in value, dignity, and worth. This was not the reality of the time of Matthew's gospel. The reality was that a woman's testimony in that time would have been seen as invalid. And so if you wanted people to believe your made-up story, if you really wanted to work hard to fabricate a story that people would believe, you would not, I repeat, you would not have included women as the first eyewitnesses in your account. You would only write it that way if something really happened. In all four of the Gospels, we have a similar take, but I love the nuance of John's Gospel. John chapter 20, verse 3 through 7 says, "So Peter went out with the other disciples, and they were going toward the tomb. Both of them were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter," must have been eating his Wheaties, "and reached the tomb first. And stooping to look in, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen cloths lying there, and the face cloth, which had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen cloths, but folded up in a place by itself." When the disciples rushed to the empty tomb, it says that they saw the linen cloths lying there. Now, that might not seem like a big deal at first glance, except when you understand that the Greek word here, which, the Gospel of Matthew was not written in English, it was written in Greek, it carries a different meaning than our English word saw. It actually is, the word for saw in Greek is this instance called theoreo, which is where we get our modern word for theory. It's actually a scientific word, which means to observe intently, looking to find an explanation. It means reasoning. It shows us that the disciples, when they arrived at the tomb, looked at the evidence and began to furiously contemplate, to look at, to reason with. For instance, they could have been thinking all kinds of things in that moment. They could have been thinking, well, if someone were to steal Jesus' body from a grave, there's no way that grave robbers would have gone to the extent of unwrapping a body and leaving the clothes laying there. Why would they have not done that? Well, because in that time, people were buried with very expensive spices. So it behooved grave robbers to take the body, and it would have been just easier in general to just take Jesus and his body and the cloths with them, but that's not what they saw. What they saw was something else, and this detail shows us that even Jesus' own disciples needed evidence in order to believe in the resurrection. They needed reasoning and thinking. And I highlight this today because many people I have come across think that if you are somehow a Christian, that you just decided. You just decided. You make a decision and it's not based on rational thought. But I would argue that if you have a Christian faith that is not grounded somewhat in reason and logic, that faith over time will be really difficult to hold up in life's up and downs. It will. Mary, Peter, and John were not able to believe in the resurrection without a lot of reasoning and thinking first. And neither should you. Neither should you. You should look more deeply at the evidence. One of the exciting things that we talked about that we have coming up, actually kicking off next Sunday, I'd like to personally invite you to this event called Alpha. It's an 8-week course, as Amanda shared, where we're going to explore and weigh the evidence of what we find in the Christian story. I would love for you to be a part of that with us. I will be there mostly for the dinner. No, just kidding. But that's a perk, right? Dinner and a movie. It's going to be a great time, and it's going to be a space to be able to kind of rationalize and reason and really look at the evidence. Well, I said that the resurrection is rational, but the resurrection is also very personal. See, you can dismiss an idea, but you can dismiss an idea, you can dismiss a philosophy, you can dismiss a belief system, but it's really hard to dismiss an empty tomb and a dead man walking. And that's what we're dealing with the resurrection of Jesus. Maybe you're here this morning and you'd say, okay, you know what, I hear what you're saying. There's probably some credible evidence in there. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe I should do a little bit more exploration. But at the end of the day, you're still wondering deep down inside, what does this actually have to do with my life? Because even if we gave you all the evidence that we had, the best evidence that we have, and there's really good evidence for the resurrection, that still doesn't answer the question, what does this actually have to do with my life today, Justin? And here's the answer. The reason for Easter is so that the God of all creation could have a relationship with you. The reason for Easter is so that the God of all creation could have a relationship with you. Not abstract, not distant, not religious, but personal. But here's where it gets difficult for all of us. The difficulty of this is that you do not come to God on your own terms. You come to God on his terms. And everything in us pushes against that idea because we live in a time and in a world that says, just look inside of yourself. Just follow your heart. Just live your own truth. Do whatever feels right for you as long as you don't hurt somebody. But the message of Jesus is altogether different. Jesus says you aren't able to save yourself by your goodness or your works because you're saved by my finished work. You don't get to fix your life and then come to God. You come to God and he makes you brand new. And if you don't come to God on God's terms, the reality is that you don't come. That's why Easter matters so much. Because Easter is the moment where God made a way for you and me, for our shortcomings and our sin to be forgiven, a way for your past to be dealt with, a way for you to actually know him. And here's what's so powerful about this. Resurrection faith isn't about figuring it all out. It's not about you getting your life together or your act together, getting things cleaned up. It's not about you finally becoming a better version of yourself. And then maybe you'll be acceptable to God. Resurrection faith is this: God came to you. You do not climb your way to him. God came down to you and walked out of a grave to prove it. One of the coolest things about being able to get out here into Walpole, and if you know our story, which you can learn more about even next week after our second service, we're going to have a meet and greet where we explain a little bit more about our story and have a time for Q&A. But one of the coolest parts about our story is we were given the building next door, which is just a miracle. We needed a place to land with this new work that God was starting here, and through several connections, and I believe through God's will, he opened up the doors literally for us to get into this space. And when we moved in, one of the coolest parts about our building is that we have a bell tower. And it's been one of the coolest things to see because our River Valley kids are so excited to ring the bell on Sundays. And maybe some of them will be lined up today to do it. Yeah, I can see a hand there in the back. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, Ollie. I love that. But there was a time for a long time where that bell wasn't ringing. And we actually got a team of us to go up into the bell tower. Kind of felt like Quasimodo. Literally, we're up to the second level. And it's like, oh, there's another level here. All right, we're going up. Dark, cold. I remember the night. And we get up there, and the bell is just, it's like rusted in place at an angle. And so we start railing on the bell. We start trying to, grease it up so that we can start moving it around and getting it back into life. And eventually, we were able to get it to a place where it's functional, it's moving, and it reminds me, and now we get to ring it on every Sunday for our services, which is just one of the highlights of my day. And it reminds me of the writer Annie Dillard, who once said, "I had been my whole life a bell and never knew it until I was rung." Friends, that's what it's like when Jesus becomes real to you. It's not just adding religion to your life or trying harder. It's like something deep inside of you coming alive, like a bell that was always meant to ring, finally ringing. In just a minute, we're gonna do something kind of fun and interesting and unique, like everything today. And we're going to have everybody here pack up, stand up, walk out the building, and walk over with me to our building, where we have a tank set up ready to baptize 10 people. Who have taken their next step. Yeah. 10 people who took Jesus up on his offer of a brand new life, and we're going to baptize them in obedience to his example. Here's the reality today. The same offer is on the table for you. Not someday, not when you get things cleaned up, not when you feel like it, not when you've got it all figured out, but right now. Because the question isn't, did it really happen? The question is, if it did, what are you going to do about it? Will you join me in prayer this morning? Jesus, thank you that you are alive. Thank you that the tomb is empty and that you've made a way for us to know you. Not because of what we've done, but because of what you've done. And God, for anyone here today who feels that stirring in their heart, that sense that you are drawing them closer, you're drawing them near, I pray that this would be the moment that they respond to you for the first time. If that's you, you can just quietly say to him this morning, Jesus, I trust you. I believe you died for me and rose again. Forgive me. Make me new. I'm giving you my whole life because it's better than the one I was trying to live on my own. Jesus, thank you that you hear us when we call out to you. Thank you that you meet us right where we are and that you are still in the business of making people new. And as we prepare to celebrate these baptisms in a minute, remind us that this is what your grace does. It brings people from death to life.